Still learning so much more about the tragedy out of Virginia where a news reporter and her cameraman were gunned down by a former employee. The gunman, Vester Flanagan, shot and killed himself shortly after, and now details of his rage and his past are resurfacing.
Yeah, Flanagan had a history of anger and rage issues. He also allegedly told by former bosses he was told to seek medical help. Well, joining us now to try and put the pieces together of this terrible tragedy is Dr. Bart Rossi. Good morning to you.
Nice to be with you.
So the bosses said you need to get help. Do you think that him getting help could have prevented what we saw yesterday?
Well, this guy that has had retained anger, what psychologists call retained anger, for a long time. He has a history of psychological personality problems, okay? So getting help in terms of some individual counseling probably wouldn't do it with this guy. He needed to be placed somewhere. He needed to be in an inpatient setting given the magnitude of his problems. So, yeah, an intervention might have been helpful, but what type of intervention? He needed a lot of help, this guy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and he was fired, let's set the record straight, he was fired from the station 2 years ago. Right. So this guy had been plotting for 2 years for revenge. This had been boiling over. And also, we're also finding out details that he had also filed another lawsuit against another station that settled out of court with him. So this was an ongoing situation and a pattern that I think most employees did not know. But I think the question really is, there is a snapping point, and what's chilling about this man is that he documented everything. He documented it to the point that he actually sent his manifesto to other TV stations. He documented the last moments of these people's life. He was perverse, he was sick, he was racist, because he did target these two people, and he talked about being a powder keg ready to explode.
Right, and he was probably obsessive compulsive as well, based on what you're saying. But my issue with this whole thing is that what we need to do with guns and mental health problems in America is to prioritize mental health. We're going to talk about what to do with guns, but we need to talk about what to do with people and people issues. And I think that if we prioritize mental health, even the NRA would probably go along with that, and we take a look at what we can do. Psychologists can do a lot today with cognitive behavioral interventions. But what good is it if we can't bring the people for the treatment?
Right.
And if we don't have mental health programming in middle schools and high schools for parents as well as kids, where are we going with mental health in America?
Absolutely.
So, and how are we going to identify people like this if we don't have the awareness?
Exactly. Tell me this as we wrap up here. Are there things that we should all be looking for in our lives and in the workplace as a warning sign?
Well, if someone looks like they're detached, they're not part of the team, they have retained anger, they look like they might explode, they have an explosive personality type, you may feel it, you may sense it, that's a real danger sign, because they may not shoot somebody, but they're certainly going to get into an altercation. They're going to be deliberate in their attempt to be confrontational. We don't want that. So I think we have to be hyper-vigilant in terms of how we look at people and their behaviors and what they're bringing into the workplace in terms of their own personal conflicts.
Okay, thank you very much for being here and adding some insight.